own clinic, now he works for her. Those words came from Dr. Jeffrey Whitfield. 61 years old, board certified, Harvard Medical, 34 years of high-end cosmetic surgery in Manhattan. And he was sitting across from Dr. Simone Lawrence, who was 37 years old and owned the most profitable aesthetic clinic in New York. And he was asking for a position as a surgical consultant. Any position. Any salary. She knew exactly why he was there. And she also knew that 12 years earlier, she'd been on the other side of this desk, asking, begging, and he had said no. Nobody knew that her success was built on what he'd taught her, despite trying not to teach her at all. Rewind 12 years. Simone had applied to the apprenticeship program at Whitfield's clinic in 2011. She was 25 years old. She had a medical degree from Howard University. She had done 3 years of surgical residency at a top hospital. She had experience in reconstructive surgery, not cosmetic, but the core skill was identical. You had to understand anatomy. You had to have a hand steady enough to modify a face without destroying it. You had to have an eye for proportion. She'd heard about Whitfield's program through a friend. 12 applicants per year. 3-year apprenticeship. A direct pipeline to professional cosmetic surgery which would otherwise require additional fellowship years and connections that she didn't have. She was the only black applicant that year. She didn't know that yet. She went to the interview on a Tuesday morning. Whitfield sat behind an enormous desk. He had the confident posture of someone who'd never been told no in his life. He looked at her CV for 45 seconds. Just 45. And then he said, "Howard is a fine school, but this program is for surgeons with elite-level training." She said, "My surgical record is as strong as any applicant's." He said, "I'm sure, but cosmetic surgery isn't about technical skill. It's about an aesthetic eye. Understanding luxury clients. Understanding what affluent patients want. This requires a certain background." She understood what he meant without him saying it. She said, "I've assisted on over 200 facial reconstructions. I understand proportion. I understand balance." Whitfield said, "I'm sure you do, but this program exists for very specific reasons, and I don't think it's the right fit. I wish you well." He stood. The interview was over. 27 minutes total. They never discussed her work. They never looked at photos of what she'd done. They just didn't. She left the office and stood in the elevator for 6 seconds before she cried. Just 6 seconds. Then she stopped. She got in her car, and she drove to the Queens Public Library. She spent 2 years learning from books, videos, and mentors who would help her. An older surgeon named Dr. Patricia Chen spent 30 hours teaching her the technical differences between reconstructive and cosmetic surgery, the philosophy, the precision, the client psychology. Chen didn't charge her, she just taught. Simone trained under surgical supervisors at a hospital in New Jersey. She took every certification that existed for cosmetic procedures. She apprenticed informally with a dermatologist in Brooklyn who was doing injections and laser work. She spent $3,000 on online courses. She attended every cosmetic surgery conference she could afford. By month 24, she knew more about aesthetic surgery than 90% of licensed cosmetic surgeons in New York. But she had one problem. She had no clinic, no clients, no reputation, and no way to build it without the credibility that came from places like Whitfield's program. So she did something nobody does. She opened a clinic in Queens, not Manhattan, Queens, in a neighborhood where doctors didn't usually open aesthetic practices. She rented a small office space, 2,000 square feet, sterile, clean, modest. She called it Clarity Aesthetics. And she set up her first advertisement in the neighborhood community center. She charged half of what Manhattan surgeons charged, not because she was less skilled, because she was building a practice in a place where people couldn't afford Manhattan prices. She did Botox injections, she did chemical peels, she did non-surgical rhinoplasties using fillers. She built her hands. Her first month she had 8 clients. Month 3 she had 40. Month 6, someone brought a photograph of their result to a local news station. The story was simple: a cosmetic surgeon in Queens who could give you the results of a Fifth Avenue clinic for a fraction of the price. The story went viral on local social media. By month 9, she was booked 3 months out. But she still wasn't doing surgical procedures. That required a clinic with operating capabilities. That required an operating surgeon license endorsement. That required things she still didn't have access to. So she took the next step. She partnered with a surgical center in Long Island, a facility that rented operating rooms to outside surgeons. She applied for privileges. She was approved, and in month 14 of Clarity Aesthetics, she performed her first surgical rhinoplasty. The patient was a woman named Rosa, 29 years old. She'd wanted nose surgery since she was 17 but couldn't afford Manhattan prices. Simone charged her $8,000. A Manhattan surgeon would have charged $25,000. The surgery took 90 minutes. Simone had studied it for 4 years. She'd watched every video. She'd practiced on models. She'd had Chen walk her through it step by step. When Rosa came to her follow-up, 2 weeks later, she cried. She said, "I look like myself. Just the best version." That photo of Rosa went on Simone's website, and it changed everything. Within 3 months, Simone was doing 15 surgical procedures a month. She was booked a year out. She was making more money than she'd made in her entire surgical residency, and she was doing it in Queens. Whitfield heard about it. He heard the story. Young black woman, Queens, undercutting Manhattan prices, building a reputation in the outer boroughs. He didn't think it would last. By year 3, Simone had opened a second location in Brooklyn. By year 5, she'd opened a third in Manhattan, in a building just 6 blocks from Whitfield's clinic. By year 7, she had 23 employees. By year 10, she was doing 300 procedures a month. Her profit was $4.2 million a year. She was being written about in medical journals. She was being interviewed by the New York Times. And Whitfield was struggling. His model depended on exclusivity, on being the only prestigious cosmetic surgeon in a neighborhood. He charged the highest prices in Manhattan. He had the most expensive office. He advertised in luxury magazines. But something had shifted. Younger patients wanted results, not status. They wanted to go to the surgeon who was written about for skill, not for snobbishness. And Simone Lawrence was everywhere. Whitfield's client base declined, from 200 monthly procedures in his peak to 92 by month 137. His staff shrank. His partners retired. His overhead stayed the same. He was bleeding money. By year 11, he called her office. He asked for an appointment. She had him come to her Manhattan clinic. The office was modern, clean, full of light. The waiting room had art from black artists. The walls had photos of procedures and results. Every photo was of a real patient from her practice. Diverse faces, all beautiful in their own way. Whitfield sat in that office and saw his own philosophy reflected back at him, inverted. He had built an aesthetic practice on the idea that beauty meant exclusivity, that the best cosmetic surgery was only for the wealthy, the connected, the right kind of person. Simone had built an aesthetic practice on the idea that beauty was a human right. That skill didn't depend on your background. That technique was technique. They talked for 2 hours. Whitfield said, "I was wrong. I saw a resume with Howard on it, and I made a judgment." Simone said, "You did. And I'm grateful, actually, because if you'd accepted me, I would have spent 3 years working for someone who thought my background was a liability. Instead, I spent 3 years building a practice on the premise that my background was my advantage." Whitfield said, "I need work. My clinic is failing. I have a reputation that's hurting more than helping. I don't know how to move forward." Simone was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "I'll hire you as a surgical consultant. You'll mentor my younger surgeons. You'll help me build the technical standards, but you work on my team, under my name. And you understand the philosophy. This is not an exclusive practice. This is a skilled practice that serves everyone." Whitfield started working for Simone Lawrence in month 138. By the end of the year, he'd trained 4 younger surgeons, he'd implemented new technical protocols, he'd watched Simone perform procedures and understood, finally, why she was so good. She didn't distinguish between patients. Every face got the same attention. Every body deserved to be heard. Within 18 months of working under her, Whitfield published a paper on aesthetic surgery and systemic bias in patient selection. It became required reading in cosmetic surgery programs across the country. Simone expanded her practice. She opened a nonprofit training program for young surgeons from underrepresented backgrounds. Whitfield helped design the curriculum. They trained 43 surgeons in the first 4 years. 18 of them were black women. The paperwork is famous now. The application to Whitfield's original apprenticeship program. The rejection letter. Simone framed it. It hangs in her office. Not as a wound, as a document. As proof that the door that closes in front of you is sometimes the door that teaches you to build your own. The last time I saw Whitfield, he was training a young woman from Haiti, teaching her a technique, watching her hands, correcting her gently. He had a humility that he didn't have before. The humility of someone who'd learned that exclusion has a cost, and the cost is usually paid by the person doing the excluding. The part that stays with me isn't Simone's success. It's that she hired him anyway. She had every reason not to, every logical reason. He could have damaged her. He could have taken credit. He could have been a problem. But she made a choice. She said, "I'm not going to be what you were. I'm going to be the alternative." That's harder than revenge. Revenge is easy. Building something different takes courage that goes beyond what most people have. Here's my real question. If someone rejected you, would you reject them back? Or would you build something so successful that they have to ask to be part of it? One word. And be honest with yourself. Subscribe, because next week we have the story of the teacher they tried to fire who ended up teaching the superintendent's daughter.